Hey everybody, I'm Jesse Showalter, and in this episode we're going to be taking a look at Affinity Photo, the new photo editing software by Serif. It's good for web designers and graphic designers and photographers and people who want to do composites and image correction and all that kind of stuff. It's getting a lot of buzz lately, especially since Apple unveiled the iPad version last month at their developers conference. This is the desktop version. We're going to jump in and do a hands-on review today to see if it's a piece of software that you might enjoy and maybe even switch over from other things you've been using. Let's talk about it coming up next. For years, we've been using the computer and different types of creative software to flesh out our designs, no matter what type of design it is. If it's graphic design or web design or interface design or print design or product design, we've been using software to do that for years. But if you really look back, you'll find that that word industry standard came from a period of putting aside all other design platforms pretty much, and everybody was basically standardized onto the Adobe Creative Suite. And that was really, really great. That meant that if you were working in a PSD and I was working in a PSD, we could share our files. In years prior, the alternatives to the Adobe Creative Suite have been subpar. But in recent years, there's been this explosion in creative design tools for us who are doing all those different types of design. And so now if you're like an interface designer, you might be using Sketch or Figma, or if you're looking for like a good piece of free graphic design software, you might be using Gravit Design. And today I want to take a look at one of those competitors in the photo editing space, something that will be really comparable with Photoshop. So good for photo editing and compositing and image manipulation, and that is Affinity Photo, made by the folks over by Serif. We're going to dive into the computer and get hands-on and just see what some of those features are and what it can do. So let's switch over to Affinity right now and let's check out the interface. We kick over, it looks really, really similar to Photoshop, right? You have a tools panel down the left-hand side here. You have a bunch of tools up top. There's some things that are a little bit different that we'll talk about, but we have some navigation and some panels down the right-hand side, and it looks like you can pull any of these panels out just like Photoshop, and you can kind of customize the interface to your liking. I'm sure you can also go into the settings and you could change the user interface to be your type of dark or light. So I don't know, it looks really, really similar when you open it up. Immediately what I see that it's similar to Photoshop is the layout of the interface. So that's really, really nice. You have tools, you have a canvas, you can put things on the canvas, make things. You have a layers panel over here. So if I draw a square, it shows up, or a rectangle, it shows up in the layers panel. And then I'm sure that I can go to the color panel and manipulate those things or those layers that I've put on the screen. So that's really great. You have basic controls like your basic black arrow, your pointer clicker tool, right? So you can rotate stuff and move stuff and scale stuff up and down. So all that seems really, really standard, really, really good. What seems really different right off the bat, and it's what Affinity is kind of known for, is this idea of what they call personas. If you look in the top left corner, you'll see all of these different personas. So right now we are in the photo persona. So if I uploaded a photo and started working on it, you'd have all the tools that are kind of in context to photo editing, right? But if you click over on this one, you have the liquify persona. You'd need an image on the canvas to actually do that. You have the develop persona, okay? You also over here have the tone mapping persona, and you have the export persona. All of these are, if I click over to a photo and I click over to the liquify persona, all of this is a separate workspace where all the tools in the interface changes specifically for that thing. Like if I want to warp now, I can just warp away and either apply things or cancel things, okay? And if I cancel, I go right back to the photo editing persona, right? Or if I go to the I'm now in the develop persona. This is great for photographers when you want to make almost Lightroom-esque kind of like changes to color. So here's my scopes and here's my curves. So basic kind of color correction stuff that you'd want to do like quickly and not dig into all the live filters or all the adjustment layers in Photoshop. You could do that here. So that's kind of cool. Now we've clicked over to the tone mapping persona, and that's going to be a lot more in-depth tools to actually mess with the tones of your photos. And then lastly, you have we're going to cancel that, and we'll go to the export persona, which is specifically made for exporting, which is kind of great if you think about it, because exporting in Photoshop at times could be kind of a bear. So maybe hopefully the tools that are here in this specific persona will help to kind of speed up that process. Okay, we're gonna take a look at some of those key features now. What can Affinity Photo do? Just what can it do? Let's take a look. So we have a photo out here and we're in the photo persona, and let's just play with some of these tools. So like you have the hand tool that's good just for moving around. You have the black pointer tool that's good for touching things and grabbing things. We can unlock the layer in the layers panel and actually move it around on and off the canvas. So that's kind of cool. You have the color picker tool, so we can pick a color and it shows up there. We can click the color picker tool from up here as well, and click like the skin tones, and so that works as expected, right? Like boom, it just puts it right into the color picker. We have the crop tool, which is nice. It brings up kind of the crop markings where you can just readjust your photo the way that you want it and apply, and it's going to then recrop the photo. That's really, really nice versus like marquee tooling and doing some weird stuff like that. So that's really, really nice. You can also, if you go to the crop tool, you can look at the modes and you can just do certain constraints. So for instance, if you wanted like a 1x1, which is, you know, like an Instagram like square or something, you can do that. And you can just scale it down and get the shot that you want, and press enter and bam, you have like the perfect like dimensions. So cropping is nice. You have the selection brush tool, which is really, really powerful, and you can just bump the size of any brush, you know, just like Photoshop, by using the left and right bracket keys and kind of like making it larger or smaller. And you can just paint across your image and select portions of your image. So we have the hat selected, and maybe we'll come in here and just kind of select a little bit more of the shirt and get all the way out to the edge there, and that's pretty good. Now you do have the ability to go back and subtract certain areas if that was a mistake, or go back and add some more if you're trying to get something that you missed, right? Now that's pretty good, and obviously we're gonna go over the pen tool and how you can like cut things out that way, but Affinity Photo has a really unique or a nice feature called the refine kind of panel. So when I use the refine selection tool, I'm immediately taken into almost like what's called a quick mask mode, where everything's masked out and I just see my selection. And then I take my refine selection brush and I can paint over anything of the edge that looks a little bit funky. So now I have this fill layer, and it's kind of helping to point out some of the spots that are garbage looking. And now we're gonna get into, you know, the idea of masks. Like masks are really, really easy. You can just pop a mask on something. I could have done all of this by masking if I wanted to. But what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna, on this mask that's attached to my photo we just made, I'm gonna click the B for brush tool. And I'm gonna go up to the brushes and I'm gonna look for like a really basic brush. Okay, great, I'm gonna choose that. And I'm just gonna enlarge my brush with the bracket keys. And you can see that since my color is set to black, if I painted right now, I would be painting a piece out of my selection, okay? But if I go here and I change it to white, you'll see that I could possibly fill in areas. And this is the thing that I really like about Affinity Photo, is the live preview of adjustment layers or brushes or live filters. I love it. If you just drag over, you can see what will be there if you paint in. And so what I want to do is I want to zoom in a little bit on this shirt, and I want to pick a brush actually that just has a little bit of a soft edge, and I'm going to zoom in on this shirt, and I'm just going to paint back some of my shirt because that's really, really noticeable. So I could just come in there and paint back a little bit of my shirt, and that looks pretty good. Now I'd probably want to do a whole lot of other work on this selection to make it look better, but you can see how just painting in a little bit of those edges kind of fixes what I need it to fix, and I have a pretty good selection, okay? So that is like the selection and refining selections and using the brush and the mask tool to do a bunch of that nonsense. We're gonna see what else we have going on in the tool panel. We have a gradient tool, so I can draw a gradient, and let's see. For some reason that didn't work. It's because I'm not on a new layer. I'm going to create a new layer. I'm going to draw a gradient. Now again, back to that kind of live idea of Affinity Photo, that you can see things, you can preview things as you do them. You have obviously your paint tool and all your brushes up here. There's lots of different brushes. You have like all the different like artistic brushes and your standard brushes, but you can see I can just kind of paint away. So that's pretty good. Painting's pretty good, okay? What else do we have? Over here you have like a paint mixer brush, so I'm not really quite sure what that's doing. It's just kind of smudging things. Okay, that's cool. We have a pencil tool and a zoom tool. Zoom, all those really easy because you can just press Z, and if you just click and drag to the left or to the right, we're zooming in and out. You can always use your quick keys of like Command plus and minus also for that. So that's really good. You have clone brush tool. So let's get rid of this gradient thing that we have going here. And let's get back to our image. Okay, so we're going to jump to our image. And we have a clone brush tool. So clone brush and clone stamp, all of those things are really good for kind of fixing blemishes or spots like on some sort of image. So maybe we could do that here as well. Let's look at this mole like on her neck, and let's see if we could fix that. I'm guessing you're gonna hold down Alt and just choose the space, and then you're gonna go ahead and just kind of clone it in. So again, that's an imperfect kind of solution for fixing skin, but maybe if you pick a better brush, like can we pick a better brush? Let's go basic, let's go to the faded brush, and now if I click in here, we get more of like the faded brush, and we can just brush around, and we could do it that way. So that's good. You could change the brushes for the clone stamper. But if you really want to do some blemish and like fixing of things, you can click this little healing brush tool. If you click the bottom right corner of any tool, there's the tools that are underneath it. So you have the healing brush, the patch, the blemish removal tool. So let's just see that. I can click right on a spot, and it's gonna reconstitute all the pixels around it and basically create new pixels. And so I can just come into any blemish that I'm not a fan of. You have the Inpainting brush tool, which is really cool. I'm gonna actually kick over to another photo and show you the Inpainting brush. So if you have the Inpainting brush selected, really good for masking out large areas, okay, that you don't want to be in the photo anymore. So I have this really beautiful picture of a mountain range, and maybe I just want to get rid of some of this. You can just kind of inpaint over some of that mountain range, and it's like a mixture between like spot healing or blemish healing and like the refine selection tool. It's gonna do its best to get rid of any evidence of what was there and kind of reconstitute it with, you know, surrounding pixels and scenery. So maybe not the best or the most perfect way to remove things, but maybe it's a good way to get you started. So that's the Inpainting brush, that's kind of nice. You have your white arrow, which is good for selecting points, obviously. And then you have shapes. So let's see, we have all the shapes down here, like you have rectangle and ellipse, obviously, but then you have all the custom shapes like stars and crescent moons and all that kind of stuff. So I can drag a crescent moon out. And what's really interesting is, similar to its sister app, which is Affinity Designer, each shape comes with your basic kind of like bounding boxes or edges, but it also comes with some distinct nodes. So if I'm on the node tool or on the shape itself, I can click on these red shape nodes and I can change the shape just a little bit. So Affinity knows that this is a moon or a crescent moon, so therefore the node shapes are going to change it in context of its shape. Or we have like the double star tool. Like I can drag out a double star, and you can see I have some red nodes, and if I drag in and out on these red nodes, I'm going to get some different ways to manipulate this specific shape. And all of them are different, obviously, but you can get some interesting kind of shapes off of those. So those are fun, those are nice. So I'm gonna get that thing out of the way, and we're gonna go check out the typography tools. So we have, let's see, what do we have? We have artistic text and we have frame text. And so I don't really know what the difference is. I'm just gonna drag out artistic text and I'm gonna start typing, okay? So, all right, typography tool goes on there. You can move it, you can spin it, pretty good. I can go into my colors, obviously, and color it something. I can color pick it. So let's see, I can use my color picker tool and grab like a yellow or something up here, or an orange. I like that the color picker tool kind of stays, and so you can kind of work with it over and over and pick something that you like. So that's kind of interesting, that's kind of nice. Okay, so let's say I have some typography. I want to change the typography. This brings up another piece of the interface that's really good, and it should have gone, I should have described it for every other tool we've done, but it's called the context bar. So the context toolbar pops up dependent on the thing that you're interacting with. So when we're interacting with text, the bar is going to be in context of that text. So context of the text. That was confusing. And so you can see up here on my context toolbar, I can change. And again, back to the live preview strength of Affinity, I can just kind of roll through different fonts and I can find one that I like. It's using all the fonts that are loaded into my system, so that's something to keep in mind. Anything that's active on your system is going to be active here. So I can pick a nice font and I can come back in and just edit this and say good morning. All your standard typography tools you'd expect from some sort of editor. You can also, though, which is really, really nice, you can create different styles. So I want to create a paragraph style, okay, and I want to name this like heading, and I can save it. And then later on, if I'm going to enter in some more text and say la la la, and I want to change it and do something weird with it, I could actually say, you know what, I actually want to go back, I want to give it no style, or can I go back to heading? Bam. So it has text styles, which is really, really nice. You can save headlines and so on and so forth. So you can do some good, consistent kind of like typography work in this. Of course, it has all of your different typography controls like alignment, and you have character controls in its own panel up here, which is really nice. So I can mess with the leading and the kerning and adjustments and line height and all that stuff. So we could, we can mess with the height of it, but you never ever want to do that. Let's see what happens if I click over to my liquify. Obviously, we know what the liquify persona does. You can just liquify things to your heart's content, and then when you're done, you like it, you can apply, okay? So I just kind of buffed my mountain ranges up. And if I click over to the develop persona, I can play with my histogram and my curves, and I can just tweak this a little bit just to get a little bit more contrast if that's something that I wanted. So that's kind of nice. I'll develop. Okay, so it's gonna like seal the deal. It's gonna like apply all those changes. I'm gonna go to my tone mapping persona. Again, I'm not trying to spend like a lot of time and cover everything. I'm just showing you a little bit about what it can do, right? And so we're mapping tone now. So we want to, you can kind of just look and see, maybe we want to just put in one of these almost like filters over it. And if we don't want the filter, we can mess with different things like temperatures. We can enhance it with a little bit of contrast. Okay, that's pretty interesting. I like it. I haven't even, I'm gonna apply this. It's gonna make the photo look super crazy, but I haven't even talked about the amount of different filters and how those are live. So we can do layer, live filter, and we can literally, if we want to add like some Gaussian blur, okay, you can mess with it just like this, and that becomes an actual filter if you look in the layers panel right here that you can always go back and edit that filter. So if I just click it like that, I'll get the different filter selections that come right back up. That's really, really nice. Okay, so you have all the different options you can do, and there's a lot in here, from text tools, typography tools, to different layer tools and arrangement, the amount of filters. You have frequency separation and haze removal. Like if I add haze removal, you can change, you know, if there's haze in the air, it'll actually remove some of the noise and give you clarity to your image. So you can cancel that if you want. And so there's just like a lot of different things going on here. Last thing I wanted to talk about was the exporting options in Affinity Photo. If I kick over to my exporting, I can use, the first tool that you have is the slice selection. So let's say I wanted to just slice my plane. So there's a lot of different ways you can do it. You can just select on objects and you can try to export from there like that. You're not exporting the whole document, you want the selection with the background, or you can do the selection without the background, which is kind of nice. And then you would just export that out onto your desktop, and you can see now I have the PNG of the plane itself. This is actually really nice because I can just select items and not have to crop them out and worry about the transparency. I can just say I just want that item itself. So that's really, really easy to do actually, is to just click on items and then click export, or you can do your kind of hotkey, which is just Command Alt Shift S, and I get those same options. There's more options you can use if you really want to, and there's presets that you can kind of apply. The next thing you can do is create a slice. So I can click on an object and I can create a slice, and you can see right here in my layers panel, it's given me like a little slice or an exportable symbol, okay? And now I can export those if I'd like to by doing just like a similar thing. So there we go, we can export Mr. Dolphin. Yeah, I want to replace the other one, okay? And so you can see now we have our dolphin that's been exported. And so it's a really easy way to do it. You can just click on the layers and slice, 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 and it'll slice everything out to sides, and you don't have to worry about overlapping slices because it's just, if you're just exporting, you have that one selected, it's only going to export that layer. So that's really, really nice. Lastly, I want to talk about not exporting, but importing. And I want to talk specifically about importing Photoshop documents. And so that's one of its claims to fame. So I have a Photoshop document out here on my desktop. It's like a surfing website project, and I just want to see if I can open that with Affinity Photo. I'm going to go over to Affinity and see if it opened it. And sure enough, it says the documents containing missing fonts, so I'm going to want to make sure that those are fixed. And then it says the assigned profile is sRGB. It's just telling me my color profile that I'm using. But look, I have all of my rulers and my guides that I set up in Photoshop. I have all of my layers. Everything is over here. All the actual text layers are actual text that I can go in and I can edit the text, right? So it didn't just import everything as like an image or like a bitmap. So that's really, really nice. It feels and looks like a very seamless import. And so I'm gonna go ahead and say that that's mind-blowing because there doesn't look to be a single problem here. I'm just gonna like hide everything else and just look at the layers panel, but everything has its place. Everything is named the exact same way that it was named in the Photoshop document. This is like super duper exciting that you're able to do this. It is interesting to note that as we were about to export, we saw this little tab that says Edit in Designer. This is part of a suite of applications, which is Affinity Photo, Affinity Designer. And so if they work in tandem with each other, and so you can actually link these two together. And when I click Edit in Designer, it's going to go ahead and launch Affinity Designer for me. And that way I could do any kind of smart object or like vector editing there. And then I could save it. When I save it, it's going to be cross-compatible. It's going to go back over into so you can see the whole thing now is opened up in Affinity Designer, and all the layers are saved there as well. So that's pretty crazy. That's pretty amazing. So let's move into final thoughts. The final thoughts on Affinity Photo. What do I think of it? I think it is pretty stinking fantastic. I think it is powerful. I think it's feature rich. I think there's probably, of course, a lot of things in there that it does not have that Photoshop does, but personally, those are things I can live without, like the ability to edit video and make like animated GIFs or cinemagraphs and stuff inside of Photoshop. I could probably live without that and make them a different way. All the main tools that I would need are there. I think that some of the things that it does are amazing, that are different than Photoshop. I think that like the ability to see everything happening live, like live brush results when you're kind of laying them over the canvas, or live filters or live gradients, all of those things that I've wanted for a long time out of Photoshop. And they're here, you know? Even live typography, like so I can kind of drill down through the menu and see them happening live. That's really, really nice. Some other things that I like the different personas. I've actually heard people kind of nitpicking at the whole persona thing. I like it. It keeps me focused on what I should be doing, and that's what Affinity Photo seems like to me. It seems a little bit more focused. Like something like Photoshop just got carried away throughout the years, and it's expected to do everything. And I don't want a tool that does everything. I want a tool that does what it's supposed to do, like really, really well. I love the fact that it's Photoshop, document compatible. Like when I I did not expect to import my Photoshop document and have it be that pristine inside of Affinity. So I'm absolutely amazed by that, because you could send me a PSD, and if I don't feel like paying for a monthly subscription, I know I now have the confidence that unless I need to make changes and send it back to you as a PSD, if you're just sending it to me and I'm like the developer on the project and I need to open it up and I need to slice stuff and get like, you know, assets out of it, I can do that now in Affinity Photo, and it only cost me $50 one time. That's kind of amazing. And this is going to be completely preferential. I like that there's a little bit more color in the icons and in the interface itself. I feel like it puts focus on what you need when you need it. I know some people are like, they really appreciate like more minimalistic, but I feel like in this context it works well. So I liked that quite a bit. What else do I like about Affinity Photo? I feel like it's quick. It felt very snappy. Like it didn't drag, it didn't lag. There was some times when I was painting and maybe that felt like a little bit weird, but I was also screen recording, so I think that had something to do with it. So, but it feels fairly quick and snappy to me. Like it opens quickly, it opens photos and Photoshop documents quickly. So I like all of that, how quick it is. The exporting is nice. That's not really a huge thing for me. I don't export things out of Photoshop as much these days because I'm using other tools like Sketch to do the majority of my like digital design stuff and asset exporting. But it's nice to know how simple it is. Literally like, click on that layer, turn it into a slice, click on that layer, turn it into a slice, and then I don't have to crop and do any sort of funky stuff like that. That's really, really nice. I think all the export options were really, really good. Overall, I really enjoy it. I really like it. Things that I don't like about it. I don't like that you can't click on certain percentages or numbers or different variables of your design, like typography size. I don't like that you can't just click on the word size and drag to the left or the right like a slider and have it kind of dynamically grow and shrink, because that's just like the fastest way to do something. I know that you can grab, you know, the corners and kind of like pull things out that way. That's really nice. I really do love the fact that everything is a smart kind of image. Nothing is destructive. Like you can take an image and like shrink it down and then shrink it back up and shrink it down and shrink it back up, and it doesn't like mess with the pixels. It's just, you don't have to have a smart image elsewhere and edit it there. It's all just happening inside of Affinity. I didn't even get to mention that during the demo, but I really love that. I don't have to press Command T to transform something and confirm that transform. I just shrink it down, put it where it goes. That's kind of amazing. Thank you for that. Other things that I'm not the biggest fan of, the color picker was like not my favorite, but I could get over it, right? All of these little things I'm probably about to say are things that I could get over, that I could learn to deal with or learn to like. You know, I don't have a lot of bad things to say about Affinity Photo. Like, I wouldn't really have a lot of bad things to say about Photoshop, just little nitpicky things like these. So, all in all, what do I think about it? I love it. I really like it. I'm gonna start trying to use it in my everyday kind of design work, because I'm not ready to I can't cut my Adobe subscription yet, because there's other parts of the suite that I use on a daily basis. But I could see how with like a little bit of work and a little bit of getting used to, how you could cut those things. So I'm gonna start using Affinity Photo for basic photo correction and image stuff, because it does that really well. And I would suggest that maybe you would do the same. Who is Affinity Photo good for? I feel like that's probably like the next question on people's minds. Affinity Photo is good for graphic designers. I think good for photographers who, you know, maybe you are using Lightroom, but you don't also want to pay for like the higher amount. You know, like that whole, like the subscription plans are like Lightroom for like $10, Lightroom and Photoshop for $20, the whole CC like package for $50 a month or something. Maybe you don't need Photoshop and you just need Lightroom, but every once in a while you need to make basic image correction stuff. Man, this is for you for sure. For people who are just getting into graphic design and they don't want to sign up for a subscription for Photoshop, this is really good. I think this is good if you are like me and you do a lot of interface design and web design, and you have some other sort of smart tool. Like I use Sketch 99% of the time, but every once in a while I want to manipulate an image. I could probably get by if it wasn't for a few other like applications that I use, I could probably get by with using Sketch and Affinity to make any and all interface that I need, because I know that I can do all my interface work, and any image that needs to be manipulated, bam, I got that covered with Affinity. That's pretty cool. I think this is really good for somebody who just kind of wants a good piece of design software. It's not like middle ground. It's not like run of the mill. It's really, really good. And it's only $50, which makes me go, everybody should buy this. I think everybody should have this and start using it, because there's certain things about it you might really, really love. And it's just, I don't know, solid piece of gear. So I think it's for new people, it's for novice people, it's for experienced people, it's for people who don't use all of the Adobe, or the Adobe license or the Adobe Creative Suite constantly. Yeah, I think it's pretty good. Should you switch? I think is the next question, or the last question. Should you switch? I think that's going to be up to you. It really depends on your needs. If your needs are, I just need to do, image editing and like some basic image editing and developing and stuff like that, and I don't need Illustrator, and I don't need Premiere Pro, and I don't need Muse or whatever all these other Adobe, programs are, then yeah, I think you should switch. I think you should stop paying for subscription right now, pay $50 in the Mac App Store and get it, or it's on Windows as well. I think you should get it because I think it's that good. I don't know how the Windows version is, I haven't tried it, but definitely for Mac users, you should get it right now. Should you switch if you still use other parts of the Adobe Creative Suite? That also kind of depends. I do use other parts of the Adobe Creative Suite, like for instance, I use Premiere to edit these videos, and I use Illustrator to do like vector and logo work, but I could probably use Affinity Designer. Sketch does some pretty good vector stuff. Gravit Design is kind of nice, it's free, it's not the best ever, but I could use it. And I could probably just download like Final Cut Pro and use that for my image editing or my video editing software, and that's a couple $100 in a one-time payment. There are other solutions that I could use. I guess what I'm trying to say is, if my Adobe license expired tomorrow, I would be okay. I'd still be able to do client work, I'd still be able to do professional graphic design work, and that's kind of cool. I don't want to say, it's not like liberation, like burn my bra kind of thing, but like it's kind of freeing a little bit to know that I don't necessarily need Adobe. I can choose Adobe if I want to. Pretty cool. Well, that's it. Thanks for hanging out and watching this review of Affinity Photo. I know it was a longer one, so if you made it all the way through, kudos to you. I really appreciate it. If you have any questions about Affinity Photo or any questions in general, make sure to leave them down in the comments. The description is also where you'll find any links to the images and the composite that I actually made you can have and pop open and play with in Affinity Photo if you download the free trial or the app itself. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to the channel. I like to do a lot of stuff about design and development and software reviews just like this one. And so if you like that kind of stuff, maybe hang out with me from here on out. I hope you guys are having a great week. I hope you're designing amazing stuff. I hope you are making amazing stuff. And I'll talk to you guys soon. See ya.